Hi, I'm Rick. Welcome back. In part two here, we're going to be fitting and hooking up the water lines and the propane line to the back of the new hot water heater. So I'll talk to you as soon as we get back to the next video. All right, I hooked this baby up. So I think what we'll do is we will start with the cold down here on the bottom, and we're just going to kind of get ourselves a little estimate of what kind of length we're going to need to make that work. It's going to be somewhere right in this area here, so I'm going to make life easier for myself by cutting this line off right now. I'll give myself extra and then I can trim it to length later. But you'll see this little tool that I have right here is a PEX line cutter, and this one is actually for cutting garden hose. And the advantage to it is it cuts these ends off nice and square. For some types of fittings, that is really critically important. For the types of fitting that we're using right now, not so much. So with the connector here, it takes a little bit of force, but you just kind of push that into place like so. And once you got it seated nice, which we do, I'm going to put these special PEX line clamps on it, and this type of clamp right here you're going to want to fit about within 1/8 of an inch probably of the end of that line. And then these are the special pliers for well, crimpers for crimping this metal band in place, and it takes a little bit of strength to do it. And crimp that down, and once you get it crimped all the way down, the pliers will release, and that's how you know that it's crimped on securely. So now we'll go ahead and just kind of fit this temporarily. We'll put this water line in place here just to get our length and everything measured out correctly. And we'll go over here and say, okay, we're going to need about that much length right there in order to make that run correct. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut that baby off right there. And PEX line is cheap, folks, so if you make a mistake cutting your PEX line, it's not the end of the world. It's a little irritating because then you kind of got to start over again, but it certainly isn't the end of the world. Okay, so that's going to fit good. We'll go ahead and put our clamp on here. If you make a mistake, you can always just cut another one. Not a big deal. Alright. Get that put on there about where we want it. Like I said, about 1/8 of an inch to the end of the fitting there. And that one's crimped. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the hot line here. Voila, folks. That's our water line setup. Okay, I'm just going to leave those loosely hooked up for now, as I don't need to take them off for any reason. Well, actually, no. Actually, yeah, I think I'll go ahead and take them off. I might want to pull the water heater back out to make it easier to route the gas line. Okay. Alright, so Nick's shoving the water heater back in there, and I've got the back end. That look like about where it's going to sit, Nick? Okay, so we're just going to kind of, oops. Alright, so we're kind of playing with our, getting everything hooked up in the places where we want it to be here. And I can probably go ahead and, if I want to, I don't see any reason why I can't clamp that gas line back down over there. And I'll probably do that. I'll probably go ahead and get the gas line clamped down to that beam right there, just for security. Not that it necessarily needs to be clamped to anything, but I might do that at the end of the project here. But for right now, I'm just going to worry about getting it hooked up to the back of the water tank. And that's kind of our next step, is to get that gas line hooked up. So let's go ahead and get that done. So now this one here, you'll notice that I am not using any thread tape or anything on this, and that's because we don't have to, because of the type of fitting it is. It's a flared fitting, and the flare is what seals it, not the threads. So thread tape is not required. What is required is for me to hold my mouth just right, so I can get this all threaded on here without cross-threading it. That would be the preferable way to do it. I don't think I've got my mouth just right yet. There it is. You want to really make sure you don't cross thread these, and it's real easy to cross thread them. If you feel any resistance when you're going on, stop, readjust, figure out what you're doing wrong. You don't want to cross thread this, because then you're taking more stuff apart than what you want to do. Okay, so we've got that threaded down to hand tight, and so we're going to go ahead and give it a little snug with the wrench. And get the right size out here. Alright. That's not the right size. There's the right size. Okay. Going on just the way it's supposed to. in order to do this the correct way, I'm going to want to hold on to the inside nut on this too, so we don't end up over tightening that end of it. Okay, there we go. Alright, that gas line should be tight and hopefully leak free, and we'll check that before we fire it up, of course. Now we can go ahead and hook up our water lines. Cold line. Now this type of water fitting, you normally just do these hand tight. They've got a gasket in there that Nick had bought replacements for, so we've got brand new gaskets in the end of these. But if you get too tight on them, you will over mushroom out those gaskets, and they will leak on you. If you don't get tight enough, they'll leak on you. Now, what I've found with this type of gasket is that if I go as tight as I can by hand, I'm usually okay. But I have occasionally run into problems with that, and have learned just to give it a little extra pull with a pair of pliers. And not very much. But all that is based on how much torque I can apply with my hand, by my hand. So your hand might be different. So don't go by what I'm doing here. You want to probably, if anything, err on the side of a little bit too loose. And then when you check it, if you've got any leaks, tighten it up a little bit more in small increments. Because you really don't want to have to turn off your water, drain it all out, put new seals in, and start all over again if you don't have to. Okay, so there, now we've got our water lines hooked up and our gas line hooked up. So the next phase in this deal is we're going to go ahead and actually bolt up the water heater to the trailer. And then we can start working on our